Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Thursday edition of Birds 365, your daily deep dive into all things Philadelphia Eagles. I'm Zander, Krause, joined by my co-host John McMullen, Eagles Insider, the number one Eagles Insider, as we bring you the latest news, insights, and everything you need to know to stay connected to the Birds. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Thursday morning, brother?
Doing well, yeah. Saquon week in full effect.
Yeah, man. Saquon week. Going back to the Giants, back to his home, where he was drafted. You think it's a big week for Saquon, John? You feeling a big Saquon week?
I don't know about on the field. I mean, obviously, it's, no, I don't mean that good or bad. I mean, it's all dependent on a lot of things. Number one, what do the Giants want to stop? And maybe because of we know from Hard Knocks the way John Mara took that, they probably don't want to have Saquon Barkley beat them.
Yeah.
And that might be a positive for the Eagles if they're over sort of extending to stop Saquon Barkley in the wake of the other playmakers. That might actually help the Eagles, but I do get the feeling like it's one of those where Joe Shane and Brian Daboll shouldn't have to approach the game like that, but they might have to approach the game like that. I mean, really, because John Mara took that departure like a man. And, if he gets 170 yards and you're giving away jerseys next week, I mean, that's not going to look good for the head coach of the other team and the GM of the other team. So I'm not being facetious at all when I say that. Because of that, their main objective might be to stop Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, it's a fair point. No doubt about it. We'll see how it plays out. We've got a great show planned for everybody today. Plenty to talk about with this Eagles team as we prepare for their Week 7 matchup versus the New York Giants. Birds are 3-2. It's a weird 3-2. I'll say that. Everybody feels, at least I feel, a little bit odd about being 3-2. Now, I do think you're going to win a couple of games here in a row with the schedule coming up, but we'll see how it all plays out. We'll get into the press conferences yesterday. Jalen Hurts spoke. Nick Sirianni spoke. Lane Johnson had some interesting comments yesterday. So Johnny Mac was in the locker room. We will talk to him about that. Saquon's return, as John mentioned. We'll talk about Saquon's return. And then the injury report is what we'll get into here in the first segment. Any viewer chats, any super chats will be addressed later on in the program. We appreciate all of you guys for being here on the live show this morning, and anybody who listens on the podcast. We appreciate you as well. Don't forget to hit that like button or leave us a review if you enjoy the show. John, let's get into the injury report real quick. 3 guys yesterday, 3 key guys. 2 of them we were pretty aware of with Jordan Mailata and Dallas Goedert, but Milton Williams popped up on the report. Your takeaways on the injury report, and what do we know about who's going to play this weekend?
Negative, obviously, for Jordan Mailata. We already know he's going to be out this week, at least a couple weeks, and we'll see as that progresses down the road. Dallas Goedert as well, very unlikely he's going to play this week. And then Milton Williams is a surprise that popped up on the injury report, was unable to practice. I did see Milton in the locker room, and that's a positive. So I think, today's going to be key. It might be a management situation. If he's not on the field again today, then you start to get a little bit more concerned. But because he didn't practice on Wednesday, I'm not gonna completely rule him out. He might be able to make it back, but we got to see, because he wasn't moving poorly or anything like that. So we'll have to see about that. The limited guys, Oren Burks dealing with a groin, Jalix Hunt with an ankle, and Darius Slay, most importantly, with his knee. They were all limited. Slay, I'm told, is trending towards playing unless something happens in practice this week. Now, he doesn't like to play on MetLife Stadium. Nobody likes to play in MetLife Stadium. Mekhi Becton was just ripping that stadium to high heaven yesterday.
I heard all that.
But he's trending on playing, and that's a positive if he can get back there. And Sidney Brown was full as he continues his rehab. The Eagles started the practice window for Albert Okwegbanon. So, even that could be he was dealing with sort of a sports hernia type thing. And Anaya Smith, who's also all of those guys are under 21-day practice windows, would have to be activated, but they were all fully practicing. It's going to be interesting. I thought Sydney would be activated last week. They want Paris Campbell instead, which was a little bit of a surprise to me. He's ready. It's not about that. It's just about, I guess, need on a particular week. And Alberto might be a little bit more of a conversation because Dallas Goedert's not going to play. So you're going to need another body at tight end to supplement Grant Calcaterra and Jack Stoll, especially how much 12 personnel Kellen Moore likes to use. And it's either him or EJ Jenkins getting elevated from the practice squad. So that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
EJ Uzama, I should throw his back as well. He could be elevated from the practice squad.
Yeah, so we'll see.
And I'm sure he loves MetLife as well.
Yeah, we'll see what they do there. John, you think Milton Williams will play? I guess we don't know yet. Did it seem like it was something that could keep him out of the game, or more just a cautionary rest type of thing for him?
Yeah, we'll know more today about that because, like I said, I saw him. Nobody knew he was hurt because we were in there before practice. And now I just saw him walking out, said hello. Obviously, when he saw us walking in, he walked out. Probably because of this specific injury, but he, like I said, he wasn't moving, he wasn't limping, he wasn't doing anything. So it'll be clear this week if he's back, even in a limited fashion. They're probably trying to manage him through the week. If he doesn't practice again, that's probably trending in a negative direction.
We'll see what happens there. A couple people spoke yesterday. John Lane Johnson said some things that were interesting to me with the slow start. So we'll talk about that. But Nick spoke. Jalen also spoke. Any takeaways from their press conferences? Kind of run of the mill. Again, Nick keeps getting asked the same stuff.
Yeah, it was all Saquon this week, and I think there were 5 questions on Saquon. And it's like, Nick, well, you should probably ask Saquon that. And we did. Saquon spoke in the locker room. So obviously it's a big week, understandably so for Saquon. But Nick is in down speed mode, so to speak. Very nonchalant again, not his typically fired up self. I think he was basically, told to apologize, had to apologize. So probably not in the best framework right now. But he created a lot of this on his own. So I don't think there was much to cull from his press conference. He was towing the line, and most of it was about Barkley anyway. So obviously wouldn't give any updates on Dallas Goedert. He typically doesn't do that when there's any uncertainty. Jordan's was so bad they couldn't even hide that. The issue with Jordan is it going to be 2 weeks, or is it going to be 4 weeks, or is it going to be 6 weeks? And we don't know that, but we'll see that coming down in a little bit. We'll probably get a little bit more information on that, but and then the obvious nature of trying to insulate people from criticism, which is not going well. I think he understands that now. Some people blame me for that, and Nick pointed it out, and I said, please don't point that out. But nonetheless, I hope people understand at least, which I'm trying to get apart. Like, he's not calling the 3rd and 1 play. He's not calling a defense. He's trying to insulate people from criticism.
Yeah, we really got to keep putting that out there because I see it everywhere.
I know,
John.
I it's unbelievable to me. It is unbelievable to me.
Well, I mean, I was talking to Cilio about this, and Cilio actually had a great take that I think you'd appreciate. We were talking about this, and he's like, look, I get being the head coach where you're going to fall on the sword, but talk about the good shit too you do so that people
Well,
know,
yeah.
talk
Well,
about your record. Talk
but
about the other things
look,
you've done as the head coach that you should put on yourself to give yourself a better look, because everybody in Philly thinks you're a dumbass when you do this. Now, I think our viewers are understand where he's at with that, but there is a large swath of the fan base, a large
yeah,
portion
I
of
mean,
people, even who cover the team,
I said the
who
same
talk about it.
thing. I said the same thing. I said, point to the scoreboard, point to your record, point to
Right.
whatever.
Exactly.
I said the same thing. Yeah, I mean, he's taking credit for every boneheaded move this team makes, and some people, not all people, as you mentioned, I think our viewership is probably amongst the smartest. That's always been my goal when I do this show.
Yep.
Um, and but there's a lot of people out there who really believe he's taken away the dumbest play and doing it himself, and they believe it. And there's two things about that. One, like, I don't care if Nick wants to make himself look like a fool, go make yourself look like a fool. I don't care about that. That's his problem. But, for a guy who preaches accountability, to let these guys avoid accountability in the public sphere. Now, he will say, well, they face it behind the scenes, which I get, and that's more important. But nonetheless, it's important in the public sphere as well, because if you think, if you're preaching accountability, I always go back to that Seattle game. AJ Brown took accountability. When Nick made himself look like a fool, AJ Brown stepped up and took accountability. To this day, the quarterback has not. In 3rd and 1, he is not taking accountability. The most interesting comments to me about Lane Johnson yesterday weren't about the slow starts. It was about, he revealed that they're very slow with the play clock. Very, very slow. And they're always getting up to the line of scrimmage late. And that does a couple of things. One, it doesn't give you as much opportunity to change things to the proper direction you want to go. And it highlights to the defense, all right, they got to snap it so we can pin our ears back and go get it. So there's a lot of negative that comes from that. Might be Kellen Moore getting the plays in too late. Maybe Jalen Hurts not having a sense of urgency. I don't know. I asked Jalen about it. Again, he gave one of his Jalen-isms and deflected it. But that's what's going on, because Lane is very honest. And he said, we were near the bottom of the league during the bye week, and it was a point of emphasis, whether it's Kellen, as I said, getting in the play call quicker, or Jalen doing what he needs to do quicker. They got to be quicker to give them more options. So that was the most important part of his discussion. And then, again, 3rd and 1, Nick looking like a fool. Wasn't Kellen Moore's fault either. It was the quarterback's fault. Now, I say plenty of fault on Saquon Barkley for that whole
that was
segment
executed very poorly
as well. Yeah. But again, why you going for the big shot on 3rd and 1 in that situation? If it works, it works. And Kellen says Devontae Smith was open. It looked like he was open, but they didn't have time to get him in football. Either way, it was the decision of the quarterback. So, you could step up and say, hey, that was me. He doesn't do that. Does he have to do it? No. Is he held accountable for his part behind the scenes? Yes. But
I think also the other interesting part of that is he takes accountability when it worked at the end of the game. He's like, oh yeah, I checked into that play.
Fair point.
So it's not only like he's skating by it when it didn't work, but he's also pointing to the times it did work, almost as I guess I don't have a problem with you wanting to bolster up yourself, but maybe take a page out of Nick's book. You are the quarterback of the football team.
Well, I always say the quarterback, it's a well-known rule amongst quarterbacks. Ask any quarterback you meet. If there's success, it's we. If there's failure, it's me.
Yeah.
That's part of the gig.
Did
And
anybody
same
ask
thing.
Jalen if he checked into that play at the end, or did he go out? Did he give that answer unprompted?
No, Nick Sirianni, and then he was asked. Nick Sirianni said it, and then he
Right.
was asked. So he didn't do it unprompted, but yeah, I mean, it's obvious though if you're watching the
Yeah,
game.
right. You can see him checking
Yeah.
that.
Same thing with the 3rd and 1. If you watch the play, it's obvious. So when people say that's my fault, and Nick, I believe, didn't even use the term play call. That's on me. He's probably referring to the game plan, the option, which is built into the play. But people take it the way they want to take it, and they think for this particular play, Nick Sirianni usurped Kellen Moore. It's just not the case.
The worst one is the defense. I mean, I was watching I'm not gonna call him out, but I was watching a big content creator who's talking about the now Nick Sirianni's calling defense. We got to fire this guy. I'm like, dude, he didn't actually call anything on defense. He's just falling on the sword on every side of the roster or every side of the football.
Yep.
Can't you see that? But
Yeah, it's amazing how many people can't, and it's self-inflicted, so I don't feel bad for him.
oh no, I don't feel bad for him. I'm just saying, I wish I wish the full context was added into the conversation, and it's not.
Yeah. I certainly wish it was added to the context of the conversation because it's so obvious. It's one of those things where it shouldn't even be a conversation. But again, why Nick is doing that unprompted, and I shouldn't have helped him. And I raised my hand on Monday when I said that, because then he came back and said, John asked me, and I probably won't give you information. And everybody's mad at me. And I'm like, hey, he's not giving you information. So he's not taking away, he's lying to you. He's being disingenuous.
Right.
So that's what I was trying to get out. And it got out, not in the way I would have liked, but it's out there. He's being disingenuous is the point.
No doubt. Any other takeaway? Let's go to that Lane Johnson comment that you brought up about the line or getting in early in the play clock. That was a good exchange. I think it was between him and Howard Eskin right there. That was a good exchange, insightful exchange from Lane Johnson. He seems to give you some answers, Lane Johnson.
Oh yeah, Lane's incredibly honest. Yeah. He can't not be. He's one of those guys, very much like Kelsey. It seems to always be the offensive line. Jordan's that way. Jordan Mailata. They're incredibly honest. And if you ask him a question, he's going to answer it. And yeah, I mean, to me, the biggest part, as I said, most people are focused on the slow starts and the constipation. Because that was a cute little quote from Lane, but I think the far bigger part of that was the clock operation, because that was revealed, and the team knows it. They're trying to fix it. They tried to fix it with tempo. They ran far more tempo against the Browns. So a lot of things come into, if you're paying attention, a lot of things come into clearer focus. The lack of Kellen Moore motion. People are worried. Well, that's Nick taken away. Now, well, when you run tempo, you don't run as much motion because the whole goal of it is to keep the defense on the field, to keep the defense tired, to keep the defense from substituting, et cetera, et cetera. So that takes that number down. And why are they doing that? Because they're so late in the shot clock, so to speak, all the time. And he said, we haven't done it well, and we've emphasized it over the past few weeks to pick it up. So it has increased. But a few weeks ago, we were damn near last in the league as far as the time before the ball is snapped. So that's something we got to improve on. That's Lane Johnson. And obviously the biggest disadvantage, the most obvious disadvantage is that defensive lines can time up because they know the play's coming. There's no Aaron Rodgers drawing people off sides when you have no time. They see the big clock too, the smart ones,
Right.
and they can fire off the football. But then you have the other edge. How sustainable. We've already seen Chip Kelly. Nobody hated Chip Kelly's offense at the end more than Lane Johnson. Just wears people out if you go tempo, tempo, tempo all the time. And he said that's a double-edged sword. So you can do it occasionally. But the bigger goal is when you are huddling and you are just playing traditionally, get the freaking play call in, get up to the line of scrimmage, give yourself some time. So if you need to do some things, you can do some things.
Good stuff there, John. Before we move on, I want to get into the injury report, not just for the Eagles. We talked about the Eagles' injuries. The Giants are missing some key players coming into this game, the latest being Andrew Thomas, their left tackle. So both teams without their left tackle this week coming into the game. Anybody else that's notable? I know Kayvon Thibodeau's not going to play. So that's right there. That's two big guys for the New York Giants on a team that's really still not that good. Who else is injured for the Giants? Anybody worth noting here on the show that might miss the game that will have a big impact?
Well, I think, the biggest, you mentioned the biggest. Andrew Thomas has a Liz Frank injury. He's out for the season, already underwent surgery. Dexter Lawrence didn't practice yesterday, showed up on the injury report with a hip injury. He's the Giants' best player. He's one of the best players in the NFL.
Yeah.
For those who don't know. And even Saquon, I said it during the season when Nick made that quote that we got your best player, sort of pushing at the fan base of the Giants. I said, they didn't get Dexter Lawrence. Even Saquon said that yesterday. Dexter Lawrence is the best player on the Giants. Even he said it. And he called him the best defensive player in the NFL. I'm not going to go that far, but if they were a good team, he's having a defensive of the year type performance. That's how good he's playing right now. So I think they're trying to manage him through the week and get him to the game. But if he doesn't play, the Eagles are in really good shape. And Brian Burns didn't practice.
Yeah.
Same thing with a groin. I think they're trying to manage him through the week. But that's something to keep an eye on. And obviously the other big one is Malik Neighbors, who has been out in the concussion protocol, remains in the concussion protocol, and he's already missed 2 games. Everybody in New York seems to think he's going to play this week, and he makes a big difference. I mean, they haven't had a receiver for years, and he's a big time talent. And he's done some nice things, even with Daniel Jones throwing to him. So those are the big ones. But they, much like last week, they're much more injured than the Eagles. So even when you talk about Jordan Mailata and Dallas Goedert, which are 2 huge injuries, and don't get me wrong, that really hampers the Eagles. But the Giants are even more banged up. We haven't even got into guys who are limited, like Devin Singletary. Well, I don't think is that good anyway, but Darius Slayton.
Guys like Malik Neighbors and Dexter Lawrence, shit, those dudes are good, man.
Yeah.
Devin Singletary doesn't scare me as much.
Darius Slayton's okay. You'd like to have him if you're the Giants, but you're not going to lose sleep over it. But yeah, I mean, there's some big time players. Their best player, arguably the best 2 players. Andrew's out, and Dexter did not practice yesterday.
Good stuff there. We'll go continue to get the updates on this game from John McMullen, you'll be down there again at NovaCare today, John?
Yeah, I got some stuff I got to take care of, but I'll be there at some point. Yeah, some personal things, but I'll be there at some point.
Got it. Sounds good. We got a couple other topics that we're going to get into. I'll do a lot of them after the break. A super chat I want to hit, but John, I also do want to talk to you and we could do this after the break. I want to talk to you about the league news this week. A lot of trades happening in the league. I always like to get John's opinion on the big NFL news. I know we're Birds 365 and an Eagles show, but I do think paying attention to the league is important. The Vikings made a trade. The 5-0 or 6, or are they 6-0? 6-0 Vikings now.
5. They were
5. Yeah,
off
they had the
last
5.
week because they were
Yeah,
coming back from London.
that's
That's the
right. So
biggest game of the week. They're playing Detroit.
yeah, that's a good game, man. That's a good game. Cam Akers was traded there from the Texans, so interesting pickup for them. We'll get into some of those trades. Before we get to the commercial break, let me go to the super chat here. I got 2 super chats to get to. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Hit that like button. F Body Guy 46 checks in. Appreciate it, F Body. He says, any chance John can wrangle a few players to join the show? Would love to see some casual interviews. Johnny Mac, what's your response to that? I know it's a little odd to do as a beat reporter.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. To be honest, I don't think it's very valuable. When guys, we're having this NFL Players Association, sort of this kerfuffle. They want us out of the locker room, reporters. The policy is we have to be in the locker room 3 days a week. In the league as a whole. And by the way, the Eagles, Jordan Mailata, the player rep. Jordan Mailata is one of the best media people in the entire NFL. He doesn't want us out of the locker room. There's a lot of positive from the players' perspective to get their own stories out there, to get their own narratives when things happen. There's a lot of positive, but anytime cameras show up, they're on. They're. And one of my main goals when we first created the show was sort of to do like a local sports reporter show where we'd have different beat writers on. That was the main goal originally when we were talking about it and doing it as a podcast and all that kind of stuff. So that was the original goal of the show. Like, I think if you listen to, we don't cheerlead here, so we're not going to cheerlead. So, and at the same time, I'm not going to bring N'Kobe on to say, hey, you're not playing well in space.
Yeah, right.
So, there's plenty of places to get it. My personal opinion is, now, if Zander wants it, I'll try to do it. But
I do think it compromises some of your integrity as a reporter.
I don't think it compromises the integrity.
Not the integrity, but like you just said, are you going to bring them on? You know what I mean?
It's bluff, and I'm not a big bluff guy.
Yeah, I like that about you, John. I'm not a fluff guy either, but it would be fun to get them on. But I'd probably save that for another style of show, F Body, if I were to able to do that. I don't know if Birds 365 is the right move for that, although John is connected with everybody. Prince Swayze checks in. By the way, thank you, F Body, for the $5 super chat. We appreciate that. Prince Swayze says, I dreamt that we acquired Myles Garrett. I almost didn't want to wake up. LOL.
Probably read a stupid story on Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
No, the Eagles are not. The Eagles are not going to acquire Myles Garrett. Yeah, he's a good player, man. Oof. I mean,
you don't think they would trade? I mean, like, because they seem like they're sellers. You know?
Well, I don't. The NFL's changed a little bit, but I do think people bring their baseball mentality or basketball mentality over. It doesn't exist. There are no sellers in the NFL by and large. Usually it's about players who are upset on playing with a losing team like Devontae Adams, and he wants to go back with Aaron Rodgers. There's always little circumstances that develop. I don't even know what you want to call Hassan Reddick. But that's the best defensive player in the world when he's right. And the Cleveland Browns are like one smart decision at quarterback, which is easier said than done.
From being good.
Being a really good team. I mean, not a good, a really good team. If they're healthy.
You're right.
Health is part of it too. So I don't know if they're selling Myles Garrett. Yeah. And by the way, if they are selling Myles Garrett, it's a dumb decision. And by the way, they're Andrew Berry. Attenbury still with the Eagles, but his twin brother. But Andrew is way too smart to selling off Myles Garrett. Yeah.
Yeah,
Way too.
I don't think they'll be doing that. So we'll say Prince follows up. It was a dream. I know, Prince. I'm just messing with you, brother. I dream of Myles Garrett and Eagle Green. I think everybody, even beat reporters, might dream of covering that dude. He's probably the best football player in the league. I'd say Myles Garrett is that good. So
Yeah, it's fun to hear the guys. I always say, you can tell when guys are special, and I got to cover some special players, Randy Moss, and Adrian Peterson in Minnesota. And over the years, getting to see different players and how Aaron Donald, the way Brandon Brooks would talk about Aaron Donald, the whole week, the way people talk about Myles Garrett was just fun, And it continued yesterday with Fred Johnson. He's like, oh man, I had to go in 95. Everybody calls him 95, but if you're a Pulp Fiction fan, Samuel Jackson, there's the famous scene when they're trying to rob the diner and he tells them to pull the wallet out. And they said, Tim Roth says, which one's your wallet? And the one that says bad MFer. That's what somebody described as Myles Garrett as bad MFer.
Yeah, that dude is a freaking monster. John, a couple of the other names that are floating around, and I don't know if I'm more looking for like a report because there's so much of the, Bleacher. Every time there's a name on the market, Bleacher Report comes out with an article that the Philadelphia Eagles are said to be.
Oh my God! Don't even start. And then there's some.
But is there any real reports like is Howie thinking of adding to the team? Now you guys he probably wouldn't lead on anything about that. But do you think they would be looking to add anybody? And if you did, where do you think it would be on this roster?
Howie will tell you he doesn't talk to anybody about the Philadelphia Eagles. He doesn't talk to anybody. So there's a lot of people who think he gives information to Adam Schefter or a lot of Mike Garafolo perspective. Generally, the information's coming from agents, not Howie. Generally, but yeah, he's going to keep everything close to the best. Yeah, he's always looking. I mean, he's Howie Roseman. He's always looking. And the question is how relevant can it be at the trade line? Like people were excited about the Jahan Dotson trade. Yeah,
I wasn't. People ripped me for it. I went back and watched the video on JAKIB the other day of me ripping the Jahan Dotson trade. I think it was on the National Football Show, and all the comments were, Zander, you're turning into Cilio. Zander this, Zander that. I'm like, dude, the dude stinks. He hasn't done shit here. I mean, you missed your two best receivers for the only time you needed them to step up, and he did it, and he did nothing. It's a waste.
Yeah, I mean, he still got some upside and all that, but the point is that I always make the basketball comparisons. This is not a sport where you can just change addresses and be impactful right away. It's the easiest in baseball because baseball's one-on-one, right?
What do you think about the compensation, though, John? I mean, you just saw Devontae Adams get traded for a third rounder. You saw,
I said the compensation. There's nobody else who was going to give Adam Peters a third round pick for John.
You don't see how we do that often.
Well, and people assume, he fleeced Adam Peters. No, he didn't. He
didn't fleece. I think Howie might feel like he got fleeced. Amari Cooper was just traded for a third and a seventh. We gave up a third.
Well, there's also, to be fair, there's a big difference
in contract.
The contract. You're getting a very cost-effective player under his rookie deal, so that does increase the value versus the really expensive player.
Yeah, but to that level,
no, it was too much.
I mean, if you got a great player,
I'm just saying because I saw a lot of people make the comparison that, well, Devontae Adams got this and Amari Cooper got this.
Yeah, now Adams is making like 30+ million.
Exactly.
That's a different ball game.
But I saw a lot of people go down that route and they go, it's complete. Now, it's fair to add that context, but also say they gave up way too much for Jahan Dotson.
Right. the two sides of the coin, the gray area is where it falls. Appreciate everybody being here on Birds 365. Hit that like button, everybody. A couple people. I am going to talk to John about the NFL news. I know we had one commenter in here who was looking for John's take on that. Yeah, what's your take on Aaron and Devontae Adams reunited? We're going to talk about that, Armand. Appreciate you being here, brother. Armand 1995. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Hit that like button. We're going to get to a commercial break. We'll come back. I got some great topics on the game coming up. We're going to talk about the first quarter scoring, where the fault is in that, how to fix it. We're going to talk about some of the defensive problems, not creating turnovers. Vic was asked about that. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about some of the league news as well, and then we'll take some viewer chats as well here and going into hour number 2. Appreciate everybody being here. Hit that like button. We'll be right back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid. Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Thursday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. Don't forget to hit that like button if you're enjoying the show. That's John McMullen. I'm your host, Zander Krause. Give us a follow on X at JF McMullen for Johnny Mac and at Real Zander for me. Hope to see you guys over there as well. Appreciate that. John, let's get into the league news real quick. Devontae Adams was traded to the Jets. Amari Cooper was traded to the Bills. Hassan Reddick is seeking a trade partner now with his new agent, Drew Rosenhaus. And Cam Akers was traded to the Vikings. These all came down, I want to say, on Tuesday. On Tuesday they came down. Your thoughts on a couple of them? We'll start with Devontae Adams to the Jets.
Last ditch effort to try to recreate the magic from Green Bay. You saw some of the lack of sort of chemistry between Aaron Rodgers and some of the Jets' younger receivers. He throws these pinpoint back shoulder throws, and guys aren't where they're supposed to be prepared for them, whatever. Maybe the best ever, the best duo ever at the back shoulders, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, on the same page. So we'll see how it works out. Obviously, that's a desperate team, a desperate organization, bad division. So even though they've gotten off to a bad start, they could rebound because nobody's running away in that division.
Right.
Bad loss against Buffalo. They would have been in really good shape if they beat Buffalo. And a couple missed field goals. It was windy that day. And they would have been in really good shape. But they still have time to come out of it, and they should be much better with Devontae Adams. But yeah, this is it for the Jets, man. If this doesn't work, everybody's losing their job, including Joe Douglas. Robert Saleh's already lost his job, but desperation mode.
Robert Saleh is chilling right now. I saw a video of some dude nagging him at a grocery store. I'm like, come on, man, leave the fucking guy alone. But he's making $20,000 a day to relax and watch his team from Aruba or wherever the hell he wants to go. So I think Robert Saleh is all right. You think it works though? I don't know, John. I kind of feel like that Jets team can still be a player in the AFC. I mean, remember, you're talking to a Philadelphia fan base whose quarterback falls apart when he doesn't have A.J. Brown on the field. I'm not saying that's Aaron Rodgers. I'm just saying we know what impact a great wide receiver can have. I don't believe Garrett Wilson's ready to be a wide receiver one in the league. I
No,
think
he's not, which is disappointing, by the way.
I don't think he's ready, and I think Devontae Adams is going to help him immensely. I think it could work in New York right now. Could at least enough to get into the playoffs and have a shot at the thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think because I don't think Buffalo's very good right now. Buffalo's 4-2, but I don't think they're a 4-2 level team. I mean, they're struggling offensively. They made some bad decisions at wide receiver. Josh Allen, tremendous playmaker, but you saw a couple weeks ago that ugly completion percentage. There's a lot of holes with that team. Miami, we have no idea when Tua's going to be back, if he's going to be back. And they're not relevant until he gets back at all. And then New England is in the conversation to be the worst team in football. So even though the Jets have started 2-4, there's still an opportunity to win that division. I do believe that. I believe this will help them. Now, they're a mess of an organization from the top down, and that doesn't change by acquiring one player. They already fired their coach, as we've mentioned. So there's a little bit of a door open. I do not think – I thought they were going to have a special season. I should have learned from all my friends who are Jets fans. It never happens for the Jets. But, yeah, I no longer think they can be relevant in a big picture standpoint. But that's very much like the Eagles. Bad division. Why can't they win it? Now, the Eagles are in better position than the Jets right now. But I have the same mentality. Like, all right, you're struggling, but nobody's running away in that division. Like, if you're struggling in the NFC North, you're screwed. If you're struggling in the AFC North, as Baltimore starts to get its footing, you're screwed. Obviously, in the AFC West with Kansas City, you're screwed. There's certain divisions that you can't start. The AFC East this year is one of those divisions where you can recover and still make a run at it.
Yeah, I still think the Bills are going to win that division, but we'll see what happens there. Speaking of the Bills, they traded for Amari Cooper, sent a 3rd and a 7th to the Browns, picked him up. What do you think of that trade? I'm a little
better, but I mean that I just talked about their receivers have been a disaster.
Yes, they have.
And look, Amari Cooper's an upgrade, but I just got to see Amari Cooper. I said before the trade, I said, boy, I don't know what happened to Amari Cooper. He's a big time player at one point, obviously. I said that last week after the game on the shows. He doesn't look like the same guy to me. Is he going to help? Sure. Because, they're throwing the ball to Mac Hollins at times, pretty significantly.
All right.
Is he going to help? Yeah. But is he the Amari Cooper? Again, this league moves quickly. People don't stay in the stasis. At one point, he was an all-pro level receiver, great route runner. I didn't see that guy last week. I'll tell you that.
No, I didn't see him either. He didn't impress me at all. And I'm an Amari guy. I watched him in Alabama. I actually have a great memory. I went down and when I was in high school, John, I went to Neyland Stadium, which is the University of Tennessee Stadium, which is an unbelievable stadium, by the way.
Yeah.
That stadium is epic. And I watched Amari Cooper, I think, have a 90 or 95-yard touchdown in that game, running right up the sideline, right in front of where I was. And I'm like, hey, I like that guy. I was before I got to Bama, but I knew I was going there. So we were cheering them on at Tennessee, which was pretty cool to see. So I'm an Amari guy. I just don't see it with him anymore. I really don't. I don't know how good
Yeah,
it'll be.
well,
Maybe,
he's 30,
you go from Deshaun Watson to
I'm sure that'll help. That'll help.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He's played a long time now. I'm just looking it up. 2015 was his rookie season. He's had a lot of big years, a lot of tread off the tire, and the guy I saw that last week didn't look like the guy I saw in his prime in Dallas. And that's understandable because, again, he's played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is his 10th season. So even though he's 30, he's been playing a very long time. And he's not the same player that he was, but he will be an upgrade for Buffalo. No question.
Yeah, and he's got a better quarterback. I mean, look, he didn't look good to me either, but Deshaun Watson's got to get him the football, and Deshaun Watson can't hit the broadside of a barn right now. So I think that's going to help him at least a little bit. And then the last trade, this is an NFC one, and it's the top guy in the NFC right now, the Minnesota Vikings, who are playing really good. Sam Darnold playing really good. Credit to Johnny Mack, who was saying all offseason, look out for Sam coming, and he's played well so far. He was ranked number 10 on my quarterback list yesterday, Johnny Mack.
Well, he's actually had a couple hiccups recently, but
he's got that team 5-0. He's playing pretty good football.
Yeah, he's playing well enough to win, and that's half the battle. When you don't have your A stuff and you still find a way to win, that's a good sign, and that's what he's been doing. When he does have his A stuff, they're really good. Now the problem with the Cam Akers trade is that set off an alarm bell for me on Aaron Jones, who I constantly talk about.
Right.
As he's one of the most impactful off-season signings in the NFL, Aaron Jones. He has been a godsend for that team. And he got hurt on a play where he literally Randy Moss somebody as a receiver. We always talk about running backs as receivers. He hurt his hamstring. And he comes, as I said, they were on their bye. And he comes back and had the extra week, and he did not practice yesterday. Aaron Jones, I'm talking about. So that added with they're acquiring Cam Akers, who was with them before and was with Kevin O'Connell in Los Angeles. So he's very familiar. That was a bad sign for me. That means Jones is going to be out multiple weeks. And they are not the same team when Aaron Jones is not on the field.
Yeah,
so that one's a bad sign for me.
Yeah. Well, what do you think of the player Cam Akers? I mean, I like him. I think he's a good player. He was a little bit washed up in the Houston mix because they got so many damn playmakers there. But I think he could be a decent fit. I think you make up a good point about Aaron Jones. I don't think you're upgrading Aaron Jones, but I do think Cam could be a solid pickup for them.
Yeah. Well, again, he's familiar with the scheme. He's familiar with Kevin O'Connell. That's why they made the move. Coming off an Achilles tear. He was with them last year and tore his Achilles. He was playing well and tore his Achilles. So he was with Minnesota, and then he signed with Houston in the offseason. So he knows the system. They could play him this week. And he'll understand what to do. So from that point, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, they're trying to win a shootout with the Detroit Lions, and they don't have Aaron Jones. I think they're in trouble. They can't replace that.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening here at the trade deadline. I asked you, John, before if you think the Eagles are going to make a move. You danced a little bit. If they made a move, where would they go?
If they cared about linebacker, that'd be number one. But I don't know if they
Got
do.
the pipe dream, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they do that. Boy, it is what it is. At the point, you should start thinking about. I'm at the point where you should at least start the rotation and give, whether it's Trotter or Van Sumeren, a series or two here and there to see what they can do. That would be my number one spot. And then you start talking about the injuries. How significant are the injuries and all that thing? Is Dallas Goedert going to be out 4 weeks? Is he going to be out 2 weeks? They're not good enough at tight end. Look, the depth on this team is not good. Every time I say that, people get mad at me. It's not good. It's not good.
Is it good on any team though in the league? I mean, I guess there's levels to it, but
there's levels to it. It's better on most teams in the league. And but in a lot of
the Eagles would clap back and say, well, most of their rosters aren't as good. And
that's true. And that's the point. That's common sense. The Eagles are very top heavy. They have a lot of superstar players. They're paying a lot of money, and that has an effect on the back end. So most people are better equipped. We just talked about Minnesota. I mean, and Cam Akers and acquiring Cam Akers. Well, they already have Ty Chandler, who's probably better than Cam Akers. So that you can't replace a player like Aaron Jones, but they're better equipped to at least persevere. And the Eagles, we've already seen it with Jahan Dotson. And if you want to go really down to Paris Campbell, John Ross, and Johnny Wilson, that week was comical to me. I'm sorry. It was comical to me. Everybody's like, well, you should be able to do this with Johnny Wilson and Paris. I'm like, you people are nuts.
You were telling me I'm nuts. I thought Johnny Wilson had a chance at 55 yards. You're like, you're crazy, Zander.
I mean, that ain't good for depth.
Man.
And this week you're going to see it with Dallas and Jordan Mailata, unfortunately. And a little bit better. I mean, Grant Calcaterra did a good job, but now people are going to be made aware of Grant Calcaterra. I think it's going to be much more difficult. Brett Johnson, great guy, rooting for him. Just cross your fingers that Brian Burns can't make it back this week. That's not a good matchup.
Going to give him a fit.
Yeah, it's not a good matchup. So there's a bunch of positions he can add to. And he likes to do things. He likes to make moves. But if you look at his history of trade deadline moves, they're not significant ones. Golden Tate won a playoff game, but overall, I don't think people would look back at that and say it was significant. Robert Quinn, certainly not significant. The most significant was probably Jay Ajayi. And, that was a nice little move. Gave him some juice during the Super Bowl season. Long term, it wasn't that significant, but you get the point. You're not getting Myles Garrett. You're not getting, despite my stupid publication, as I get in trouble, despite, hey, you're going to get Buda Baker. You're going to get Myles Garrett. No, you're not. Just stop it. I do my stuff.
Max Crosby's the big one right now.
Max Crosby. All right. Yeah. Throw Max Crosby. Eagles. Blah, blah, blah is a fit for the Eagles. No, he's not.
Johnny Mack giving you a
John Dotson's a fit for the Eagles. Think John Dotson level. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of the last couple of years. What were the moves that how he made? The last year he made Who's the Shaq Leonard? The year
Well, that
before
was
that, it was
the
Robert
Gennard
Quinn.
Avery back in the day.
Yeah, Gennard Avery. He was like what, 2020, 2021, somewhere in there.
Yeah, and he was young.
2019,
He
Gennard
stuck
Avery.
around. He stuck around for a few years, but yeah, it wasn't that impactful. Now Shaq was he was, Shaq Leonard was a great player at the prime of his career.
Yes, he was in Indianapolis. Yep.
And he had back surgery. I mean, he wasn't even prepared to play, and he was trying, and he was frustrated, and obviously he was waived. That was not a trade pickup. He was waived. He was finally waived by the Colts. And I remember because Jody was doing the show, and Jody thought it was this big, important thing. Oh, you can't let the Cowboys get Shaq Leonard because the Cowboys needed a linebacker and the Eagles, and it was this superpower battling, and the Eagles got him. And
Oof, that was tough. That was tough to watch. Shaq Leonard and Eagle Green was tough to watch.
It was not meaningful. Let's put it that way.
It was not. Let's get to a couple of super chats before we get to our break. We'll dive into the New York Giants matchup in hour number 2. Like I said, I want to mention the first quarter scoring to John, defense creating turnovers, the improvements of some of the guys on the defense and what they can do better. So we'll talk about that in hour number 2. We're going to get to a commercial break. We're going to get to these super chats first. Before I do either of those, I want to tell you about the great friends at BetUS. Go check out BetUS. Everybody, look at the promo code on your screen right now. It's YouTube 150, and that gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposits, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more on betus.com.pa. Go check them out and use that promo code. They have the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they'll even give you your own custom account manager. So go check out BetUS today. That's betus.com.pa. It's betus.com.pa. Let's get to a couple super chats here before we get to our break. Appreciate everybody in the chat as well. By the way, got a couple great super chats. Abe checks in. Abe, appreciate it. Abe says, Von Miller, could that be an option? Abe, thank you for the $2 super chat.
Yeah, what are you
Johnny
working
Mac.
for? What are you working for? Bleacher Report or Von Miller? No, he's 100 years old, and he's isn't he suspended right now?
I think he is suspended. We're not getting Von Miller.
Yeah. No Von Miller.
No Von Miller, Abe. Appreciate it, brother.
Great player, though. First ballot Hall of Famer.
Yep. Next super chat.
Very old.
James Carver says, I kept saying that Mechie was the better target, or any Texan wide receiver was better than Dotson, but Howie loves the local Penn State guys as target. So look for another local before deadline, regardless of position. Howie does like the local guys. You're right about that, James. James, thank you for the $10 super chat. John, your response.
Yeah, why does Howie love the local guys? Howie went to Florida. What does he care about Penn State?
I don't know. DeAndre Swift's a local guy. Lamine Zacchaeus is a local guy.
There's St. Joe's Prep.
Local guy.
Everybody. I think that's outside the building. He also signed Darryl Worley at one point. He didn't even make it. The Philadelphia.
He had the incident with the gun on the Parkway, didn't he, Darryl Worley?
Yeah. Well, right by the
stadium. Yeah,
right by the complex. Yeah.
Yeah.
He never even made it to No, I don't. If you look at Howie's history at the trade deadline, I mean, I don't know. If you want to go, let's see, because I always keep my Howie information. We won't go back too far. I won't go back to pre-Super Bowl. Tim Jergen was a good pickup. And this is not necessarily trade deadlines, but, Michael Bennett, Torrey Smith, he traded for Darryl Worley.
Yeah.
Michael Bennett, the 7th round pick for the Patriots.
What year was Michael Bennett?
2019 he traded him away. 2018 he traded for him.
Yeah, I wasn't a big.
That was actually, he was a good player.
He was a good player in his prime. He wasn't a good player in Philly.
No, he had a solid year one solid year. Yeah, I think he had 10 sacks when he was here. People should
Wow, did
love him.
he?
Yeah. Great.
The only thing I remember
You're
about
right.
Michael
He was
Bennett is his
great. He
tie.
was older. He
He
was
looked like he
older.
was wearing a T-shirt under his shirt. That's the only thing
Yeah,
I
I
remember.
mean, well, I always joke he had this big duffel bag in the middle of the locker room. He never opened it, just threw it in the middle of the locker room. It was there the entire year. I thought there was a dead body in there. Yeah, he's interesting guy, very eclectic guy, but yeah, he was good when he was
Yeah,
here.
you're right. I guess
Now
I
he was older. He wasn't. You're right. He was a great player at
yeah, and
in
there's
Seattle.
in Seattle, right?
But the point I'm bringing it all up is, he doesn't just trade for local guys. Sometimes he signs local guys, give him a chance, but you bring up Zacchaeus and things like that. But no, I don't think he gives a
9
rat's,
sacks. He had 9 sacks in 22. Michael Bennett.
Yeah, I knew it was close.
Yeah,
he was good. He had a
that's pretty
very good. He had a very good year. We used to talk about our Netflix cues together. He's a big horror guy.
Are you a horror guy?
No, not really.
I was gonna say I'm not a horror person. I'm not a movie person. So for anybody that wants a movie guy, I'm not the guy to talk to about movies. Other than Miracle and Remember the Titans, those are my 2 favorite movies. I love Remember the Titans.
But sometimes this time of year, I'll watch a horror movie. Now, my wife can't stand horror movies, so I don't.
Yeah, so it's harder to watch them.
But
I
they
guess
don't-
another football movie I love, Friday Night Lights, when Booby Miles breaks out destroys his knee. That's a great movie.
Yeah, I'm not a big sports movie guy either. Probably
I agree. That's all I grew up liking was sports
Yeah.
movies. My
not a
my
big,
family
not a
crazy.
big. Well, I think they're silly most of the time.
Well, I have 3 sisters, but 2 sisters that I grew up with, and
So this time
every
of year,
time we watched
I'll
the movie, I was like, "Can we watch Miracle? Can we watch Remember the Titans?" They would get so pissed off.
all those like AMC and I think in an IFC or whatever the hell they are, they always do horror movie months on Halloween. So occasionally I catch one this time of year, but not big.
Little movie talk on Birds 365. James, thank you for the $10 super chat, man. Appreciate that. Next super chat, and Martine checks in. What do you guys make of the report earlier in the week of the clause where if the Jets trade Reddick to an NFC team, the Eagles get a second-round pick? And Martine, thanks for the $5 super chat. That was an interesting report that came out. It was another stipulation that would have triggered the conditional going to a second. John, your response to that?
Well, this is where Howie proves his worth, so to speak. These contingencies, he's ahead of the game when it comes to that kind of stuff. To even have the foresight to say, hey, this guy's being a pain in the ass, maybe he'll continue to be a pain in the ass. And if you trade him to an NFC team, yeah, that's a smart, savvy move. And that's where GMs kind of set themselves apart. Like everybody thinks it's about good player versus bad player. You're trying to win outside the margins, as he describes, with little things like that. Because everybody makes good personnel decisions, everybody makes bad personnel decisions, because you're dealing with human beings. Obviously, if you make a bunch of bad ones, you're in trouble. But yeah, he sets himself apart with stuff like that.
Yep, no doubt. Great move there from Howie. Good little stipulation he put in there. And
And,
Martine,
and everybody's looking at Detroit. I don't know if he's a bit, but because they lost Aiden Hutchinson,
right?
they need something. And because that guy was going to be the defensive player of the year, and that is a devastating loss for Detroit.
Yeah, I think who would be up there now? Probably Fred Warner and maybe TJ Watt. I think TJ Watt's having another.
Well, I think a lot of it, yeah, TJ's always up there. A lot of it depends on you gotta be on a good team. Like Myles Garrett can't win it. He won it last year, but he can't win it this year. You got to be on a good team. So Pittsburgh's playing well. Are they going to continue to play well? They may make the move to Russell Wilson this week. Who knows? But yeah, TJ Watt's always in the conversation. If the 49ers get going, Nick Bosa is going to be in the conversation. Fred Warner is going to be in the conversation. Sometimes they split the votes in San Francisco because they're both so good.
Yeah.
but you got to be good. And
Nick
Detroit
Bosa,
was
he
good.
was wreaking havoc last game. Nick Bosa.
Oh, he's great. Except when Lane shows up.
Yeah, that dude can play though, man. That dude can freaking play. Nick Bosa. And Martine, thanks for the $5 super chat, man. Appreciate that. Let's go to the next super chat. James Carver checks in. James, appreciate it. He says, for Jody, I think he's got a shot now because Jets would not have lost at least 2 games with Adams instead of Williams, even with all the other issues. I agree, James. I think the Jets are in a decent spot right now. John, your response to James?
Yeah, I don't know if they're in the decent spot, but I don't think their season is over. I have a lot of Jets fan friends, and they were disconsolate over that loss to Buffalo.
I thought the team showed some life in that with the new coach and the new play
well,
call.
I don't know if you call 87 penalties life and 2 missed field goals life, but
it fell apart in the second half. But the first half, I think they put up like 20 points or 17 points. I mean, I thought they were off to a decent start.
I told him I wouldn't pull the plug just yet because it is a bad division. I think they can get back in it. No guarantees, but I think they can get back in it. The division, no way they're going to be a legitimate contender.
We'll see what happens there. I think the Bills will win that division, but still, I like the Jets' chances at getting back in. Next super chat, James Carver. Again, James says, Drew actually went on Fox's facility, good show, with Shady and Acho and said that Reddick will be playing at the Jets, and it's a lot of media talk about seeking a trade, etc. See, I thought that came right from Drew, the trade report. I didn't see him on the facility, which is a good show.
It did. Yeah, that people aren't,
Drew's feeding both sides of it.
Yeah, but, he's trying to work. Yeah, he's trying to work something out with the Jets, first and foremost, but if you can't, you try that option. CAA dropped Reddick for a reason. So, maybe Drew has a better relationship with him, a better personal relationship, can talk him off the cliff, so to speak. But CAA felt it wasn't going that direction, and they essentially fired him.
Yeah.
Very Johnny Manziel-ish. But I would still say the Jets are the number one option.
I don't know anything about CAA, but I know Drew Rosenhaus gets deals done, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the deal.
They're bigger than Drew, so Tory Dandy was Tory Dandy's big time agent. So.
Next super chat, Jason A-Team checks in. Appreciate it, A-Team. He says, how do you feel about Jalen's answer on not throwing in the middle of the field? People don't realize he can't see over the O-line, hence why he's always in shotgun. Thanks for this $5 super chat, Jason. John, your response to that one?
Yeah, Jalen didn't handle that one well.
No, he didn't.
We were laughing about that after. I asked Jalen about the Mekhi Becton playing guard. That's not why he's in shotgun. He's in shotgun because that's what he's most comfortable in, and he should be in shotgun. There's nothing wrong with that. There's more shotgun in the NFL than non-shotgun, so there's nothing wrong with that. But he's not in shotgun because he can't see over the line of scrimmage. He does have a very big offensive line, tall offensive line.
Massive. And he's not particularly the tallest dude. He's like 6 foot.
No, but he this has been his propensity long before Mekhi Becton was playing guard. He doesn't throw the football over the middle of the field. He's not comfortable with it. And again, comparison, that doesn't mean he never throws it in the middle of the field. In comparison to other quarterbacks, he doesn't throw it a lot over the middle of the field. This is not a 2024 problem. This is the way he's played. And that's one of those evolution-like things that you want to see improved. But as far as the actual question, he didn't handle that well because Tim McManus asked the question. It was obvious what he was asking, and Jalen, asked him basically why he doesn't like to throw over the middle field. And, Jalen obviously didn't take that well.
No, he did not. You can tell Jalen doesn't like some of those questions. Let's go to our next super chat. James Carver, once again. Appreciate it, James. He says, I love draft day because of its reality. I'm 100% kidding. Just wanted to mess with J-Mac, given he owned me on my local take prior. I bow to the master. James, there's a theme developing on this show where Johnny Mac has to own you several times a show, James. It's becoming a part of the program, if you will.
Howie's a Florida guy. Howie's, for many, many years, people thought he wouldn't take a guy from Alabama because he's not going to take anybody from Alabama because he's a Florida guy. It wasn't true, but
the Alabama guys are working out better than the Georgia guys right about now.
They are.
Yeah.
And then he finally went the Alabama route, and it worked out very well. And now
he's been Georgia recently.
Yeah, and everybody was excited when it happened. They're not quite as excited now, but you saw some life from Nolan Smith at least.
Some life from him.
Jordan Davis did I find it ironic. Jordan Davis played a good game, but he didn't play a lot of snaps, so people are upset because he didn't play a lot of snaps. And he didn't play a lot of snaps because they're in a lot of 11 personnel, and they weren't playing as many heavy fronts. But people.
The Jordan Davis one's really interesting to me because this would be the offseason that Howie would pick up the option or give him the extension. And I get he played a little bit better, but is Howie going to extend this guy playing 25, 30, 32% of the snaps? I don't know about that. And that's why that one's a lot more interesting. No one will obviously get another year. Jalen Carter, another year. Kobe Dean, I guess, this would be a contract year for him. Coming out, so we'll see what they end up doing with those guys. And then one more super chat we'll get to, then we'll get to our break. Man in Black checks in. He says, good morning, everyone. Man in Black, good morning, my friend. Great to see you in here. Appreciate your support here on JAKIB Sports. Appreciate everybody here on JAKIB. Let's get to our commercial break. We'll come back. I want to talk about this Giants game. We're going to get into it. The key matchups coming into this game. We talked about the injuries. The Giants are depleted as well. So we got some injuries with Goddard and with Mailata. And now Milton Williams popped up. I think he'll end up playing, but we'll see there. But the Giants got some injuries as well, some big ones. So we'll see about that, and we'll get John's take on that game, the early game. And then some news about tomorrow's edition of Birds 365 that we will give you as well. So we'll figure all of those things. I appreciate you all being here. Hit that like button. We'll be right back in 3 minutes, everybody. Stay tuned.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
Score and save in Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Thursday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm Zander, Krause, your host. My co-host, John McMullen, #1 Eagles beat reporter in town. Give him a follow at JF McMullen. Give me a follow at Real Zander. Hope to see you guys over there as well. Appreciate everybody in the chat today. Appreciate everybody listening to the show after or on podcast. Do what you need to do to help us out if you enjoy the show. That's leave us a review on the podcast and hit that like button if you're here on YouTube. Drop your comments down below so we know that you have your opinions are heard as well. I always try and read through all the comments, even after the shows, read them all on the videos as well. So appreciate everybody that checks in and that shares their opinions. John, let's dive into this football game coming up on Sunday. A Week 7 matchup. Birds are 3-2 coming into this game. It's the first NFC East game of the year. I don't want to sleep on this game, John. I think this is going to be a little bit of another one of those games. You know, it's not a gimme. There's no gimmies in the NFL. I think the Giants are a little bit underrated. I'm not saying they're a great team. I'm saying they're not the Giants of, maybe 2 years ago or even last year. I think they're a little bit of a better team this year coming in. How do you see this game from afar before we zoom in on some of the micro battles within the game?
Yeah, I think it's a good spot for the Eagles. I don't think it's a very good team, and they're banged up on top of it. As we said, Andrew Thomas is their one big time offensive lineman, and he gets hurt right before having to play the Eagles. That's a big advantage for the Eagles, and I know Philadelphia is going to be without their left tackle as well. So in a lot of ways, it kind of crosses each other out. But obviously, overall, you would say the Eagles are a better football team, so they're better equipped to handle that kind of loss. But as we've seen, that's not necessarily going to be the case. When AJ, Devontae Lane were not in there, that didn't sort of manifest itself. Ojulari had a good game playing for Kayvon Thibodeau, who's on injured reserve. So maybe he can keep it going. Dexter better play. They don't have a chance if Dexter and Brian Burns don't play. If they do play.
You think Dexter will play? And you probably don't know, but does it feel like a rest day?
He's definitely not resting. He's definitely hurt. I mean, you guys rest players all the time, veteran players, and they're listed as rest. So he's definitely banged up. Brian Burns is definitely banged up. Now, from people in New York, I know they think they're managing them through the week and they think they're going to play, but that'll become clearer as the week goes on. But definitely the strength is the defense of this particular team. Now they had some they were better on offense than they have been in recent seasons. When Malik Neighbors is out there, they haven't had him for the past couple of weeks, and they've gone back to being where they were. They're a completely different team when he's on the field. He is a big-time talent, Malik Neighbors. So I think they're going to get him back. That'll help. How they handle left tackle is going to be interesting. Got a bunch of different ways. They might throw Evan Neal. You're an Alabama guy. He's been a bust.
What did they take him overall? He was like top 5.
He was top. Yeah, he was way up there, and he's a backup player now.
Yeah,
and they probably
for anybody that watched him in Alabama, you had your concerns in the draft, John. I knew it. I'm like, dude, this dude got beat like a drum at times at Alabama, so it doesn't surprise me he hasn't worked out that well.
I would say they're a little bit, but that's been their bugaboo. Besides that, Daniel Jones is limited, which is the obvious one, but um, their big bugaboo over the years has been their offensive line. They got a little bit better, not great. They brought in John Runyon's kid. He's okay, better than what they've had. John Michael Schmitz at center, better than what they've had in recent seasons. Better play. He's getting a little bit better. Illuminor is their right tackle, little bit better, and they might move him to left tackle, or they might just play Evan Neal. Who knows? So they've gotten a little incrementally better, and then you could lean on Andrew Thomas as one of the best left tackles in football, and now he's gone. So that's going to affect them, I think, dramatically. So they're much better equipped on defense, even without Kayvon Thibodeau. With Kayvon Thibodeau, you start to say, "Hey, man, they're pretty gifted on defense."
Giants defense is not the problem. I think they're leading the league in sacks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
or right up there.
And a lot of, I mean, Dexter's having a big year from.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
Dexter's insane, John. You alerted me to him, and I've watched some of his tape, and I've scoped in a little bit more on him just because of how highly you spoke of him. Holy moly, that dude is a freaking beast, man.
Yeah, he's really dominant player. It's interesting. Fran Duffy just compared his early seasons to Jordan Davis, because that's sort of like when you take a big nose tackle near the top of the draft, that's what you want. You want him to become Dexter Lawrence. I've always compared, Dexter has, to me, he's 340 pounds and he's a legit nose tackle, but he's almost more than that because he is a good pass rusher, which is very, very rare for nose tackles. And I've always said, if Jordan Davis, my comparison has always been Haloti Ngata. If he can become Haloti Ngata, I think you're fine if you're the Eagles. But if you do want to compare him to Dexter Lawrence, it ain't good. But I don't know if that's necessarily fair.
No, it's not. It's not fully fair, but I think that was the expectation, that type of level of player, which is not happening. But
I mean, that's so rare and that's why I scale back to somebody like Nada or somebody of that nature. Because very rarely do you have nose tackles who rush the passer significantly. So, he's that type of player. And then for all the Eagles are keeping Mekhi Becton at right guard. They're not moving him to left tackle.
Got it.
At least this week, because they don't want to mess with moving things around during Dexter Lawrence week. So in a lot of ways, everybody thinks this is Saquon Barkley week. It certainly is from a national perspective. For the Eagles, it's Dexter Lawrence week. Very similar to last week was obviously Myles Garrett week. This week is, how do you slow down Dexter Lawrence?
Yeah, they got some decent strengths. I would say their weaknesses, John, are Danny Dimes. I mean, they don't have very many skill players outside of Malik Neighbors. Those offensive tackles, especially now with Andrew Thomas out, is this another day for Bryce Huff to kind of find some rhythm and the Eagles' edge rushers?
Well, I'm through saying he's going to find some rhythm, but
well, I think he did. Look, I've been hard on the dude. I thought he found a little bit last week, not great, but he looked more explosive coming off the line of scrimmage. He was in that 4-point stance, which I think helped him a little bit. He created I think he had a couple pressures on the stat sheet.
I will say this, if Andrew Thomas is playing and is healthy, it's probably, you're not even going to know he's there. So there's more of an opportunity to make some noise. No doubt about it from that perspective.
Who's the right tackle?
Illuminor. And he might play left tackle. I don't know what way they're going to go. But again, they might play Evan Neal. they might move the right tackle to left tackle, and that's to be seen. But either way, it's not going to be Andrew Thomas. So that's a positive from not only Bryce Huff's perspective, but everybody. Nolan Smith, there's certain guys, Trent Williams, Penei Sewell, Christian Darrisaw, Andrew Thomas, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, from an opposing perspective. There's certain guys, all right, not going to be a big pass rush this week on their particular sides.
Right.
That's Andrew Thomas. He's that good.
Yeah, no, I know, and he's out though, so he's a non-factor for both games versus the Giants. He's going to miss the whole year.
Yep, bad injury for them, and so it's I mean, I wouldn't even think about Bryce Huff or Nolan Smith if he was out there.
Dare I do it? Dare I say it? Half a sack, Bryce Huff. You taking the over?
Yeah, I'll take the over. Why not? I mean, there is no Andrew Thomas. Why not?
I'm taking the over. I think Bryce Huff gets on the board with a clean sack this week. Last week he got a half a sack. They didn't take it from him, did
He's
they?
back in MetLife too. He's comfortable there and knows how to play. Everybody hates that turf, by the way. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Oh man, that Mekhi Becton comment. I think he gave it to Jeff Kerr was hilarious.
The shitty one. We were there. I was there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know Jeff wrote about it, and I saw them tying it to Jeff, but it was still a great, funny quote from Mekhi Becton.
Yeah,
he wants nothing to do with MetLife Stadium.
Yeah, Slay hates it, but everybody plays there, so and it's part of the gig, I guess. But nobody likes it. I will say that.
Yep, no doubt about that. John, moving on, I think the Giants have a pretty decent pass defense. How do you think the Eagles will attack from an offensive standpoint coming into this game?
Yeah, I don't, I know Deonte Banks is a player that I'm pretty high on. The Eagles always feel confident in their matchups when A.J. Brown is out there and Devontae Smith are out there. Now it becomes a little bit more difficult because you don't have the third option, at least to the point where people are concerned about it, with no Dallas Goedert. So that makes things a little bit more difficult. But yeah, I think the Eagles like the matchups, no question about it. And they're not, they don't have Xavier McKinney anymore. So that's the guy who was the big playmaker, and maybe that could create some problems. And he's certainly doing that for Green Bay. They should have found a way to keep him. Tyler Nubin is a young player that's been pretty good for him. But I would say the Eagles have pretty significant advantage there.
Yeah, I mean, when you got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, you're in a good spot. So we'll see how they attack. I wonder how Saquon Barkley will do this week. I thought you brought up a good point. I mean, it might be coming directly from the owner in New York. You do not let Saquon beat you this week. I can live with A.J. Brown beating us. I cannot live with Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, and I don't even know if it's overt. It has to be overt. I think Brian Daboll knows it. I think Joe Shane like the worst scenario for them is Saquon running for 200 yards and having the best game of his life. So, I mean, I think it's just human nature that they probably are not going to let him have that type of game. That would be my sort of take on it.
Will I be giving away a Saquon Barkley jersey this week?
I don't think so from that perspective.
I think I'm giving away a jersey. I have a feeling that Saquon Barkley will be getting.
Well, remember the good thing about Saquon Barkley for the people in the contest every week is that he might have a crappy day and he has 165-yard run and you're there. He's a home run hitter.
That's happened on two occasions.
So he can go, to make the baseball analogy, he can go 0 for 3 and strike out 3 times and then that fourth at bat is bang, 3-run homer. And, so he's almost always in it because he can hit the home run.
Yep, no doubt about that. We'll see what he ends up doing. Josh B checks in. Josh, appreciate it. He says they won't run the ball anyway. Gonna throw them go routes. Josh is on my page where he's
They like all birds. They like go routes. Yeah. Wow.
Is that Jalen Hurst who loves them go routes?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, AJ loves them too. I mean,
Well, of course. Why not?
There's like there is a certain true. If you have AJ Brown 101, it's not the worst thing in the world to give him a chance. I mean, it's not the word. It works a lot, and people seem to like it when it works. But yeah, certain situations they should probably be a little bit more conservative. I think that's fair to say. But they fell in love with the big play, and took the Chiefs a long time as well to realize, you know what? They're playing us a certain way. We got to play differently. The Eagles are still in that mode, and it's disappointing that they haven't figured it out as much as they should have or could have. They've been very stubborn trying to keep the big play on the table, the explosive play on the table, as opposed to, all right, they're playing the safeties in the parking lot. They're not going to let us do this. Let's just take what they're giving us.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out this week. A lot of good comments in the chat about that. Appreciate everybody leaving their comments. John, I want to talk about first quarter scoring. How do we fix this issue? Who do you put the blame on? Is it Jalen? Is it Kellen? Is it Nick? For the people who think it's all on Nick, how do you identify that problem? And then I would also add this. How much of an emphasis is this particular problem? Is it overblown, do you think, or do you think it's an actual big problem?
No, it's a huge problem. It's a big emphasis, and they're trying to fix it. They're the only team in the NFL that hasn't scored in the first quarter.
Yeah,
it's
a problem. And you tell me all year, right? They're built to get the lead early.
Yeah, it's a problem. And the first drives have been, I think, 16 plays, 12 yards. Think about that.
Oh my gosh.
That there's 3 and outs, an interception, a punt, and 1 first down.
Yeah, that Mike Gill segment we had yesterday, John, that thing's been playing in my head on repeat when he's talking about that offensive line and just the way we approach things. It just seems so backwards to me. It really does.
But the issue with the first drives has been getting behind the sticks. And they're always behind the sticks. And that's sort of what the NFL, the modern NFL, has become when you're facing good offenses, at least, is almost, I say it all the time, almost an arena football vibe. Like, just get a stop here, just get a stop there.
Right.
One stop can turn the whole game. And how do you get a stop? You get a stop when there's a false start. All right, now it's 1st and 15. This is our chance to get off the field. That's how you have to approach it as a defense. And what the Eagles have been doing is getting behind the sticks. In that first game, again, first play, they're trying to get the ball to Saquon Barkley like everybody wants. The field's shitty. He slips, 5-yard loss behind the sticks. 3rd down, 3rd and long, Jalen Hurts, goofy throw over the middle of the field. Maybe that's why he doesn't comfortable with it. Interception. The 1 first down they got was a 14-yard throw to Grant Calcaterra. Then the next play, they got a nice little 7-yard gain from Britton Covey on a screen, wide receiver screen.
Yep.
Called back because Cam Jurgens was down the field. Behind the sticks again. 3 more out, they're out. Bang. And then there was, I'd have to look up, there was another penalty that put them behind the sticks. So it's been that. It's been some major mistake, illegal downfield, In the case in Brazil, the shitty field, you can't really control that. So it's been a bunch of stuff, and they haven't been able to convert. When they do, the one time they did convert, all of a sudden they're moving a little bit. They got another positive play, and they get a penalty. So it has been a lot of that. And the disappointing part of that is from Kellen Moore's first press conference, while everybody else was talking about motion and this and that, he was talking about clean operation. And their operation has been anything but clean. And I bring up the Lane Johnson point again. That's part of the operation as well. Whether it's not getting in the play call quick enough, whether it's the quarterback not having the urgency. They're always running up against the end of the play clock. That's been a big problem. But yeah, when you're the only team of 32 that hasn't scored in the first quarter, that's a problem.
Yeah. No doubt, especially when you're built like they are built, and they have a philosophy like they have to get the lead early and then rely on the run late, like you talked about. It's not the other way around like it used to be in football. John, let's talk about the defense a little bit. Defense creating turnovers, John. They're tied for dead last in the league. How big of an issue is this on the defensive side of the ball, and how much of it do you think is just a product of the type of defense they're running?
As Vic would say, a little bit of both, but
Yeah.
he wouldn't like that. Yeah, I mean, they do play. Obviously, if you're going to be more aggressive, you're going to have a propensity to turn the football over a little bit more, create a little bit more pressure on the offense. But at the same time, you're also in that type of instant probably going to give up bigger plays, more explosive plays down the field, and that's part of the give and take. So if you look at CJ Gardner-Johnson in 2022, people like splash plays. You know, he made a lot of splash plays. He led the NFL in interceptions despite missing 5 games. But he also gave up a number of big plays. And, you know, which it's always a give and take. If you look at Trayvon Diggs in Dallas, everybody, you know, they gamble, and then you're more susceptible. So obviously, if you think about the attitude, whatever you want to call it, the personality of Philadelphia, most fans want aggressive defense. And right now they have to sit and watch a non-aggressive defense, and they get frustrated with it. But yeah, other than Reed Blankenship, now Quinyon Mitchell's been around a lot of balls, and Slay gave that explanation because he went through it. The college footballs have the white stripe on them, and when you're playing corner, if that white stripe is there, you can really focus in and figure out where the ball is. So some of these times, these guys are, you know, they turn their head and the ball's right there. And it's, you know, you got to be really good to get your hands up and understand where the football is and intercept it. Quinyon Mitchell's been, I would say, near a lot of potential turnovers. He hasn't been able to finish. Maybe that tide turns. And then when you talk about, you mentioned Fred Warner earlier in the show. Boy, man, that guy punches the football out. That guy is, well, he's there. And then he's got a knack for it. I don't think they got a lot of players who have a knack for it. Certainly at linebacker, they don't.
They definitely don't at linebacker. Yeah.
And, you know, everybody's copied Charles Tillman, Peanut Tillman with the peanut punch. Everybody in the league does it. The Eagles try to do it occasionally, but they don't have a feel for it. And they don't get the football on the ground. The pass rush hasn't been there for the most part, so you don't see a lot of strip sacks of quarterbacks. If that starts to ramp up, maybe that comes into play. But I just don't see this as being a big turnover defense. as it is currently constructed.
No, I agree with that for sure. No doubt about it. And it has, and that's where we've been. Now people are pointing to the Quinion Mitchell. Boy, I thought he was ready to rip CJ Gardner-Johnson's head off when he had that clear interception and CJ jumped in front of it. And they were basically fighting
Yeah.
each other
Well,
for the ball.
communication as well. You know, Vic was talking about that. Vic's a big baseball guy. You know, he's making the analogy. If you're a center fielder waving off, you know, you got to have a better feel for it. But, you know, they both want to turn. Everybody wants to turn it over. So when you get an opportunity, everybody's just trying to get the football. And sometimes you run into each other.
Yeah. Tough look there. I was hoping Quinion got the first pick of his career there, and he didn't get it with CJ Gardner-Johnson. So we'll see how this all develops for the team. I think the first quarter, I thought your take on the first quarter was interesting. I didn't, who would you rank though at fault for that, John? I mean, I know
Say that again.
You gave a lot of good context on the first quarter scoring when we talked about that, but where would you put the fault? Is that on Jalen? Is it more on just like getting behind the sticks with the penalties and some of the other shit's a combination of things, or do you think there's someone to really pinpoint the blame? Maybe it's Kellen Moore.
Well, I think there's blame to go right. I think it's everybody, but the assumption of, Jalen, I asked him that question because I just talked to Lane. And so I asked him the question about the clock and it going down too far. And he mentioned it's an operational thing, which again, we talk about Kellen Moore and this clean operation stuff. Everybody has to move with urgency and we all have to be on the same page. I think that's part of the navigation process that I've talked about. Just with the new pieces that we have on the team and knowing our coaching staff and everybody being on the same page. So when I did read it back, I at the time when Jalen was answering, I said, he's not giving me much, but it was actually a pretty decent answer. And I think it speaks to it's a new process and everybody's getting used to each other. And the assumption it was going to be no hiccups is probably a poor assumption. That's it, but it's who to blame for that? Unless it's Kellen Moore, and Kellen Moore's been doing this a long time as a play caller now, even though he's a young guy. I find it very hard to believe he's that slow getting the play calls in. Now, there's a lot of conspiracy. Again, I bring up my GPS conversation from yesterday. There's a lot of people who hate Nick Sirianni in this town right now. So they go the direction of, well, Nick's sticking his nose in and that's slowing things down. That's not happening. I mean, where do we end up? What is the common denominator? People can answer that themselves. And most people, as I said, because they have their GPS pre-programmed, are at Nick Sirianni, and they're going to get there. But it's a different direction, and they can make up their own minds as to why the process is too slow right now.
Yeah. How much of it do you think is it this? Josh B checks in. Is it Jalen calling audibles?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of it is.
Even early in the game, though, like you come into a game with a set plan most of the time. That's the general thinking in the NFL. Is Jalen still audibling out of those plays?
No, not the first drives. No, not pretty much. I mean, that's just been, like I said, that's been just shooting themselves in the foot. Lack of execution.
I mean, I did see last week the first couple of plays. I mean, we ran the ball on the first play, and then they just couple go routes. Couple throws outside the numbers, and we're off the field. I'm like, fuck, man.
Yeah. So, overall, when Lane said they were at the bottom of the league, that factors in the entire game. And obviously, he's probably Kellen Moore's never going to tell the truth, but he's probably, you've created this situation because you want to make the quarterback happy, which is part of it. And the same thing happens with Tom Brady. So I'm not criticizing Jalen Hurts. Like, you want to get to the point where your quarterback, at least I think if you're a smart offensive coordinator, and there's a lot of ego-driven offensive coordinators, but if you're a smart one, you want to get to the point where you have a quarterback that can run the damn thing from the line of scrimmage. But how do you get there? Well, the only way you can get there is by letting them learn to do it. And sometimes that can be ugly. And then at some point, if you have to make a decision, can they do it? And there aren't a lot of guys that can be Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Aaron Rodgers. There aren't. Or Phillip Rivers, because that's Nick's guy. There aren't a lot of guys that can run an offense like those quarterbacks. Drew Brees would be in that category as well. And you have to make a decision. And the vast majority of quarterbacks today, again, it's more of a college feel where you're setting up everything for them. You're teaching them concepts instead of plays. Oh, the free safety's here, the ball goes here. Oh, the middle linebacker's here, the ball goes here. And that's what you're teaching them because you don't have enough time to teach them to become Tom Brady. The Eagles are caught in this half and half because the quarterback wants it, but does the quarterback deserve it? And what I'm talking about wants it, I'm talking about wants autonomy.
Right.
Does the quarterback deserve it? Can the quarterback do it at a level to where it's going to be better than just running what Kellen calls out of the huddle? Obviously, there's no you're and Tom talked about this. You're basically when you play call, you're calling probabilities. All right, it's 3rd and 7. They're probably going to be in this defense. We're going to run this. And the really, really, really good quarterbacks, when the defense does something they're not supposed to do based on the situation in the game, they can get you out of the play, the probability play, and get you into a better play. But that's really difficult to do.
I don't think Jalen is doing that yet at all.
No, I don't think many are, to be honest. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, he's year 5 in the league. There are a lot of people who point out, let him learn, and like Richard who checks in, and he's he doesn't like when we criticize the quarterback, STFU, and let him learn. Like year 5 in the league, do you expect him to get that much better at this stuff to where it's not an issue? Or I don't know, maybe I'm overreacting. Like I look at it and I'm like, it's year 5 now. It's 4 years starting. He probably is what he is at this point. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, there's I mean, again, I go back to Tom. Tom, he was still learning it,
30,
his last year.
Yeah.
No, it was last year, he said.
That's a tough example to use there, John.
Well, no, it isn't. If you think about just life in general, I mean, you're always learning shit. So for the most part, you're as close to a finished product as possible. But, if you stop learning, you're probably going to stop living. So, yeah, I always think there's room for improvement. But yeah, for people saying STFU, you can't criticize the quarterback. STFU, you can criticize anybody. I mean, we're not here to cheerlead. So
yep, that was to the point earlier about the comment about the players. I agree, and that's our role here on Birds 365. I appreciate everybody. Let's get to a couple super chats before we get out of here. Johnny Mac Bryan checks in. Not going to lie, besides the youngsters, I absolutely despise this team. Nothing Philly about this team. I got my crosshairs on Slay. Darius, a bum. Brian, you've been in rare form. Thank you for the $5 super chat. I will agree that it's not a very Philly-esque team. They are not an in-your-face, beat-your-ass type of team. They are John, I said yesterday, we play more like the Miami Dolphins than we do like the Detroit Lions. We're more finesse and cutesy and all this BS than we are, a power team.
Well, yeah, I don't know how much Philly fans watch the Detroit Lions, but they're pretty explosive. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
they
they're
do
also
some
pretty in your face.
they
We're gonna.
do they do some they're the most offensively progressive team in the NFL. Um, and they're running plays to Penei Sewell to close out games as a tackle eligible. Um, so I mean, what they have is a really good offensive line, and they can be physical. Like they're still throwing the ball down the field to Amon St. Brown and Jamison Williams and Sam Laporta even down the seam. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the best receiving backs out of the backfield. So they do it both, but um, that has to be with the talent and the physicality of the offensive line. And I think over the years, and Nick will often point this out, like the Eagles have had one of the best rushing attacks in football since he got here. Now, it doesn't have anything to do with Nick Sirianni. So for those Nick Sirianni haters, I'm not putting that on Nick Sirianni. I'm putting it on the talent of the offensive line. So what I'm trying to say is if you go outside of Philadelphia, they will say the Eagles are one of the more physical teams. And all that means is they got a bunch of offensive linemen that can kick your ass. That's all that means.
Well, we don't use them dudes here in Philly. Let's keep
But
rolling.
yeah, they do. They've used them better than anybody else. That's my point. The context is lost. People are thinking about when they say it's not Philly, people are thinking about 1985. That doesn't exist anymore. So, how many times did I have this discussion with Seth? It doesn't exist anymore. It can't exist.
I know.
So,
You're
why
right.
bother talking about it?
Next super chat here. Let's keep rolling. We only have 5 minutes left. D. Hughes checks in. D. Hughes, appreciate it, brother. He says they were so good under Shane at using the QB as a +1 in the running game and reading the edge. Now Jalen doesn't look like he's moving the same, and teams have caught up. D. Hughes, I would agree with your take there. Johnny Mack, what's your response to that? It certainly does look like Jalen has lost a step and doesn't particularly add that +1 that he used to early in his career.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the natural thing when you talk about mobile quarterbacks. And especially the ones that play like Jalen, which are not as many. Typically, when you have a mobile quarterback, it's more Lamar. Jalen, everybody, it's more like a fullback than than the old school great in space type player that you think about. Not that he can't be, but I think you know what I'm talking about. You know the difference. He takes some. I don't think he is the same guy physically earlier, but I will say this: when they need it at the end of games in 4 minutes, he tends to show up and do it. Can he do it for 4 quarters anymore? Well, I think defenses have gotten better with the RPO stuff, so that's part of it. Also, he's not the same juice-wise, physically wise, but he's still very effective at it. And like last week, I mean, I'm amazed how many people can't see, like whatever he touched it 14 times. Four were tush pushes and 3 were victory formation. I mean, Shane used to talk about that, and Shane is great with off the record, so I can't say what he said, but I can say there's a bunch of FUs in it because Shane likes to curse when the cameras are not on. And it's like, come on. Stop just looking at the box score. There's four successful tush pushes. You're kneeling down at the end of the game. Simple arithmetic.
Right. Next super chat, James Carver checks in. James says the turnover on the offense the first few games with personnel also makes it hard to have that efficient play calling operation, which I hope continues to improve as it's more solidified. James, it's a fair point with the injuries. John, your response to James, thank you for the $10 super chat, James.
Well, that to me involves with effectiveness. It shouldn't involve the play calling. It shouldn't affect the play calling. I mean, you know who you're coming to. You're game planning all week. For the most part, occasionally there's a legit 50-50. You're going to see if a player is going to be available. But because we don't know it doesn't mean they don't know it. Like they knew AJ wasn't playing in Tampa. They tried to, put a little doubt in Todd Bowles' mind for a competitive advantage. We didn't know it. We're saying, whoa, AJ's here, AJ's pushing, AJ's this. They knew it. So you're preparing the entire week and your game plan is there. Now, the effectiveness, if you're calling a play for Jahan Dotson, yeah, that's going to be affected by the talent versus AJ Brown. But it shouldn't affect your decision making because you know what's going on going in. That's what you prepare for during the week. And the old next man up mentality, you got to play the game. You can only play the players you have. So you might not have that much confidence in them, but you got to call the play. Nobody's going to admit that, of course, but it shouldn't affect the efficiency of the play calling at all. At all.
Good stuff there. James, thanks for the super chat, man. Let's go to the next one here. We got to run out of time on Birds 365. Thanks, everybody, for the great show. Again, as always, on Birds 365. We appreciate you guys for the support on JAKIB. Mark Valor checks in. Mark says, got to push back a little bit on Mike Gill's theory that the O-line is the star and the key to the team's identity. Greg Cosell on Inside the Birds showed how the Browns D-line effectively limited that aspect. Mark, thank you for the $10 super chat. John, your response to that?
Well, hey, I mean, they couldn't block Dalvin Tomlinson, which we were all talking about Myles Garrett, rightfully so. Because Myles is a guy that's a good defender. That's what I'm saying. Like people thought the Browns sucked. And the Browns do suck but we all know the reason. All of a sudden they're throwing Dalvin Tomlinson. Cam Jurgens was having a good year right until Dalvin Tomlinson showed up. Couldn't block him. Myles Garrett can't block him. So sometimes you got to tip your cap to the other team. I realize people think the Browns stink. They don't stink. In fact, the Eagles don't have an edge player like Myles Garrett. The Eagles don't have a defensive tackle like Dalvin Tomlinson. Those are really big players and really good players. And they showed up and played good games. In the case of Tomlinson, probably the best game of the season. He dominated. And he's been a good player for years. He was on the Giants back in the day. And so the Eagles know him well, but he's been a good player for years. And he had a big week. To the point of the offensive line being the star, it's typically the star. I would agree with Mike's impact. I mean, Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, Mekhi Becton has been solid. Cam Jurgens has been solid until that game. That's at worst top 5 in the NFL, at best 1 or 2, right there with Detroit. And that typically is what everything works off of. And this is everything. Joe Banner was out there this morning, as a matter of fact, saying about quarterbacks. You can trace, and I don't want to, I'll try to bring it up. I know we got to leave, but, and Joe's right from this perspective. He's too busy tweeting about politics. So I'm trying to find it. It's funny to watch people this is Joe, not me. It's funny to watch people try to explain a proven quarterback's bad play with crazy theories. Almost 100% of the time that a proven quarterback is looking or playing badly, it's because the offensive line is bad. It's just irrefutable. And that's what's happening in Dallas, because he was talking about Dak Prescott. That offensive line is awful. how many times have I said to you, Zander, if you can't block people, you can't play offense.
Yep.
Period.
You're right about that. No doubt. Real quick, let's roll through three more super chats real quick. We got to roll through them. Brian says, Hurts probably dyslexic or he has vision problems, had issues in college reading the playbook and zone defense. He might need contacts. We are cooked. And then he says, this is our fault for turning a Temu Taysom Hill into a franchise quarterback. Brian.
Oh, boy.
But Taysom is more athletic.
Now we got
in the mud now.
Now we got dyslexic and what else? And now we
Temu Taysom Hill.
How about wish.com at least? Come on.
Oh, an upgrade from Temu to Wish, John. Last one here. Brian, thanks for the supers, man. I do appreciate the supers. He says, Justo says, will Barkley be heavily featured on Sunday to rub it in? Justo, you missed the beginning of the show.
You missed the opening of the show, man.
Yeah.
I think the Giants are going to be hyper focused on stopping Saquon Barkley. Hyper focused because they don't want to look bad to their owner. That's how I think it's going to play out.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Owner's got the final say. Great show today, Johnny Mac. I know you got to run real quick. Just the update for tomorrow. John has some personal stuff that he has to handle tomorrow, so there might look a little different tomorrow on Birds 365. I'm going to get some content up, whether I have John for the full 2 hours or not. I will be here 8 to 10. No worries about that. So I'll be here for everybody. John will join me at some point, but he does have some personal stuff to handle tomorrow.
One of my wife's best friend, who's her stepbrother's wife, her mother passed away. So the death in the family, got to deal with some things, and but I'll be here at some form. Probably not for the whole show, but we'll see how it shakes out. But rest in peace, Joyce Taylor. I will say that. So
rest in peace to Johnny Mac's friend there. So John will have some stuff to handle tomorrow on the family side, as he just pointed out. So I'll be here for the content. We'll get John at least in for a prediction and stuff. We're working on a way to do it for 2 hours tomorrow, but I'll keep you guys updated on that. Appreciate everybody in the chat today. You guys are the best, man. Great stuff as always. Thank you for all the super chats today. Johnny Mac, great show, man. We'll catch you tomorrow at some point on Birds 365. All right, brother?
All right. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.